Good evening, Martin.
Rich, so nice to have you here. How are you?
Doing well. Doing well.
That's very good. How is the temperature? Are you in New Jersey or are you in Chicago?
No, I go to Jersey in August.
Ah, okay.
So I'll be there for a month. Let's see. I'm in Milwaukee today.
Ah, nice. Germantown.
And yeah, exactly. And it's sunny and it's hot and humid. So I would suspect it's going to be middle 80s, maybe even higher today. I haven't looked at the exact forecast for today, but it's it's warm and humid.
Okay. Um, th- somehow you were interrupted. I believe my internet has a problem, or maybe yours, or both. Oh.
Okay. Well, I just said that it's warm and humid and, middle
Yes.
80s, I think. Um, so that's about it.
Okay. Yeah, nice. I'm in Malaysia, where we have our new office, and yeah, just back from training. Thursday is quite a busy evening always for me because usually I go training, and Thursday is always heavy, and after that I rush back to make it. And today was a problem because the alarm system of my car had a problem. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So whatever. Um, we can start right away, right? Because we have some interesting new developments. I found out that the bureaucracy would almost kill the Credentilix project because the law firm who gave us the um, freedom to operate confirmation with respect to Singapore law in using blockchain tokens for the innovation financing, they now want that we uh, identify each and every person to whom we circulate that evaluation. And they yeah, I mean in general they would agree to circulate it, but they have to do this because if there is any change in the law, they need to contact the person to whom they have given advice and update that person. is something that is really sensitive.
Hmm.
And
So where are you in that process?
the whole thing is ready. We decided to not use credit card based on the discussion of last week. The project is almost ready. What needs to be prepared is the token purchase agreement, and then we can sell the first tokens. I'm chasing the inventor, and then after that, example being ready, there are already 3 others in the pipeline for other innovation. And so it gets closer and closer, but not as fast as we thought. It's
Sure.
yeah, but probably that's always when you have a startup. And I find myself as Credentilix also as a startup founder, which is quite ironic, I would say. A startup for funding startups. And
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I've been trying to figure out personally um, how you are managing all this, right? I mean, you got Credentilix, you've got,
with the
you know,
firm,
I don't know what you call this venture in Singapore and in Malaysia, but you've got that going on. I mean, both of those have got to be super time consuming.
yeah. Okay. Uh, answer number one, you need to understand a bit where I'm coming from. Number one, I don't have a family, so I'm pretty much on my own. My kids are big. One is living in Hong Kong and almost married, and the other one is living in Singapore and married with 2 kids. And I'm divorced, and yeah, so that's in very very short words. That's my personal situation. So and also I must say I'm also a bit the culprit because for my entire life, what my business is doing and my interests are always in the foreground. So I believe my ex-wife has suffered quite a lot from me not being at home and traveling around, which was probably also the reason for the divorce.
Yeah,
And
sure.
for me,
Understand.
this is part of my calling. I love it because I'm I know that there would be something left, and the more active you are, the more opportunities show up. I give you an example. I got a call from a large German chemistry company, and they run operations in Singapore, and they are now wondering whether they should invest 50 million euros in Singapore, and they evaluate it internally, but they also get external advice. And because I'm one of the very few Germans in Singapore, and I have a good standing, and I'm here for 25 years. So people very often ask for my opinion. So they would hire me, and because this is for their job. So I would give a keynote speech, is well paid, all good. But then I ask a bit around, what are you doing at all in Singapore? And then they say, oh, we are running a data center here. And I said, okay, but why does a chemistry company run a data center? I said, oh, we are not only into chemistry, we also do pharmaceuticals, and we supervise the evaluation, the market response testing of the pharmaceuticals. And we do that electronically, and we pay patients money if they give us feedback on how our pharmaceuticals work. And then I say, oh, that's interesting, because 5 years ago during COVID-19, if you remember that time, um, the one of my, how to say, school friends. Actually, we went to Bible school together, but he was a teacher there and I was a student. And he is now the equivalent to the Pope of the Protestants in the world. So he can meet or he had met the Pope frequently, once a week or so in Rome. And when during COVID-19, we had the idea, why don't we activate all the missionary stations for running COVID-19 testing for the pharmaceuticals against COVID-19? And then we set up everything, but then suddenly COVID-19 stopped. I'm still wondering whether COVID-19 stopped or whether this was nonsense from the beginning, but ultimately maybe not so important. So I told him that story, and then he said, "Oh, that sounds interesting. If I can activate that for our drug testing, that would be $100 million market." And so I've identified the next opportunity, and it's really big. And I'm very sure that I do this because I have this on my plate for a very long time. And so one thing comes to the other, and I organize myself with my team, which is in the background. So we have a team of people on the payroll and also freelancers. And I slice projects such that we can drive them in parallel and leverage on the help of many people. Yeah. Like what we do for the 4x4, which has evolved into riding the wave, which is bringing German companies to get a second foothold in Asia or to develop the innovation capabilities in Germany. But in the first place, you need some contact to them. And the ultimate goal of 4x4, when we started this 6 years ago, was to understand innovation better so that we can help the small and medium-sized enterprises to weather the bad times that are going to come. But 6 years ago, nobody believed me or us. Yeah. And now, today I read that Porsche sales was down 16%. No, not sales. Deliveries was down 16% in the first 6 months of the year. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there was a article that was published here in the States about the whole German, excuse me, actually it appeared on LinkedIn, but I think it was published in the States.
Yes.
And it was about basically the German economy, imploding, right? Because
Yes.
of all of the troubles with the automotive industry. And
Yes.
and the article was really sort of pointed at trying to get legislation to prevent the Chinese from entering the market.
Which is nonsense, because how would you fight the market? I don't think that this is a good way to block certain products because you want to protect your own industry. They should have made the industry's lives easier years ago. Actually, I can even pinpoint the year 2016, where everything started to crumble. And in 2017, from 2017 to today, there's a constant decline, and the industry has shrunk by 25%. The domestic net, what is this, GDP? Domestic product, but is net. Anyway, what the industry is producing. So, and when we started 6 years ago in 2020, everything was pretty in order. The industry was only 5% down. So they could have done something against it. But what they did is they tried to subsidize themselves out of the hole, and that didn't work. But that was foreseeable, I would say.
Sure.
Yeah. So and now we are where we are. So yeah, and as for the Credentilix project, I found one very, very active alpha client, alpha customer, which is the Cargo Cobra, and he has a lot he brings a lot along. For example, he set up the service token on his own, so we didn't need a token service supplier. He set up the data room on his own, and he made it such that the token can be used as a key to access the data room. And he's very proactive and very helpful, and also has an interest to drive everything at low cost. So I believe he will be a future supplier for the Credentilix, and that also really helps. And that is also a way to identify the successful inventors and separate them from the not successful ones, because that's, I believe, is important. Is one of the main teachings that we had with Bruce when Bruce Wojak was still here. He brought in that idea that you need to look for the right people, and he even gave a recipe of what needs to be done in order to identify them. And yeah, and I have even developed from his profile, I have developed personality tests where people can test themselves in order to find out where they are and whether they're appropriate for that. Yeah. So
Right.
it's yeah, what a pity that Bruce is no longer here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what to do, right? So anyway, then I'm carefully watching what is going on in Germany, but economically. But what I can tell you, one of my friends is Dirk Kräuter. He's he's the most successful sales trainer in Germany. And by the way, having Dirk Kräuter on board was also a reason for Bruce to not like the 4x4, because he found that Dirk Kräuter is so similar to Anthony Robbins. You know, the famous sales trainer,
Oh yeah.
Tony Robbins, right?
Yes,
So
I do. Yeah.
yeah, he and Dirk, they are quite similar personalities, and Bruce did not really like them. So yeah, but anyway, so Dirk is a friend of mine, and he tells me he has a program which is called Jetstream, and Jetstream means and the analogy comes from traveling from the US to Europe, and there are certain layers in the atmosphere where there are winds blowing in a super speed, and when you get with your airplane, when you get into one of those layers, you get the booster, and then suddenly your airplane still flies 1 Mach, but the winds are 300 kilometers per hour or 200 miles per hour, and so as with respect to the ground, you are flying with 1.3 Mach, and that means that your travel time is reduced by 30%. And he has created a mastermind session with about 50 people, and you pay a membership fee, and then you take part there, and then you improve your business during the time that you're there. And he says in this mastermind, 90% of the participants are doing very well, despite the recession that is ongoing in Germany. So I believe that currently the times are not bad for everybody. There are some people who benefit even from the situation currently. And the question is only where do you move your business so that you also benefit? And of course, he says taking part in his mastermind, Jetstream, is one of the keys for doing so.
Mhm. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. How about the US? Is it going well? Before I start asking, maybe you're interested. We have our ICI meeting on the 23rd of July, which is in 2 weeks from now, I believe. Yeah, exactly in 2 weeks from now. And we will talk about riding the wave, that project to bring small, smart, and medium-sized enterprises to Asia to get a second foothold, not to leave Germany, but to have an option to do business. And there would be some, yeah, I'm inclined to say important speakers from the German bureaucracy. The foreign chambers of commerce would be represented here from the Southeast Asian countries, and we are still looking for people who could be speakers at that event. But we would address all the issues in English language that small and medium-sized companies have. And we will talk about China, about, of course, Singapore, Southeast Asia as a whole, and especially Thailand, because there's the representative of the Bavarian embassy in Thailand is the economics representative would join us. Is a she, and she would talk about her insights of the situation of German companies in Thailand when she's here. I believe that's quite interesting.
Yeah, sounds great. How many people do you have signed up for that?
I mean, whenever we have an ICI, that would be distributed to a larger crowd of people, a few thousand, and I don't know how many have signed up for that, but my guess is the same as before with the other ICIs. Some have 30, some have 60, 70, 80. Yeah, something around that.
Great.
Marty, when you did it, there's a thought I wanted to share with you.
Okay.
There was an article about our Washington, D.C. reflecting pond mess, where a person who understood biology and ecology pointed out ways to use nature to fix the problem rather than harsh chemicals or strongman engineering chemistry type solutions. And it occurred to me, and I wanted to pass on to you, that this is potentially as or more huge than an automotive industry, fits very well with green tech, but the theme of looking at problems which are real and need solution, but looking to use nature rather than to fight it could be a huge area for innovation, for businesses,
yes.
job opportunities. And I was hoping to get you thinking about it and your insights on it, because I'm sure you can take it farther than me, but I wanted to at least trigger you.
Yeah, sure. Send WhatsApp is the best, or do a post on the 4x4 on LinkedIn. That is something. And the question is, whenever you have such advancement, is how do you build a moat around your company, right?
Absolutely. Yes, 100%.
And David, now here speaks the patent attorney. For most businesses, I do not think that building a moat around your company, that patent is the most important tool.
I completely agree. As you know, I believe very much in using all of trademark, trade secret, copyright, patent, design, utility model, and just a combination of layers, try and intelligently protect each business. The choice of layers will vary, but the checklist of patent, trademark, copyright, trade secret, and licensing, how are you using that to protect against competition and also freedom to operate issues, attack and defense, that those 10 things are the most basic checklists people need to go through.
And I have another group that becomes important, and I'm pondering on that one for a very long time. I don't know whether you know, but about 4 years ago, I took a street MBA program in Chicago, and in that street MBA program, we learned something about network effects and how to use network effects to build a moat around your company. And network effects is something that you need, is more it goes into the business model, in the business, the Osterwalder business model area than in registered or non-registered intellectual property. Is not protected by law, but by constitutive law, but by natural law. You must find out a certain mechanism that where every new business also comes with a component that improves the business. And if you do that repetitively, then you have a compounding effect, and that would bring you ahead of your competition. And that is what is required to have a good business. And the intellectual property that comes from network effects lies in the distance between you and your competitors, because you have to create that distance and maintain it and increase it. And I find, now speaking as a patent attorney, that this is grossly underrated and neglected in the business area, and of course also in the patent attorney area. I believe that we patent attorneys, because we can understand compounding effects, because all of us have studied mathematics. We should be put in a position where we can help others to identify network effects in their own business. I give you an example for a network effect. As soon as a company in a certain area discovers that there are Google reviews on Google, right? I mean, it can be a niche market, but you need to understand that, for example, that on Google, no one of your competitors is out for Google reviews. And then you start to collect reviews. And then you encourage every one of your customers to leave a Google review. And you know that customers would find your business over the Google Maps, over the reviews with the stars. So, and if you do that very fast, then you are within a very short time ahead of your competition, and you take away all of the walk-in clients, because most of the walk-in clients in your business, that's the assumption, come over Google reviews. And that's a typical network effect where more business brings you systematically an advantage over your competition. And when I think about those natural ways of getting healed, and you say work along the nature and not against it, I find that network effects would be the best way to get ahead and get the distance between you and your competition. What do you think?
I think you're absolutely right, but it leaves a lot of IP lawyers with nothing to do, so it makes me sad. And I need to ask you whether your Chicago MBA was the University of Chicago, Northwestern, or somewhere else.
I would say center, and it's not a place where you meet in a high school or in a school or in a university. It's something like a circle of businessmen who gathered around a very famous person whose name is Perry Marshall, and he's a direct response marketing guru. So that's where I learned my marketing skills and also business. He's trying to venture into general business consultancy, and I can see that this works. And I've learned a lot from him. And but what I do, I apply the principles I apply is using his teaching for my business essentially, and it works well. It works well.
I think one of the slogans of "move fast and break things" fits with that, because if you are a fast mover, you have a greater chance of grabbing hold of those network effects before your competitor. I do apologize. I sent you an email with the full article just because it was easier for me. I can also send you that with the link if you want.
Okay, no. The team, they're here and they will give me the link. Let me check. I found it even here, David. Yeah. When your local reflecting pool or pond turns green with algae, don't reach for chemicals. Nature has better solutions.
Yeah, again, as a metaphor for a zillion other businesses, not so much whether or not he's right in this particular case. As you know, I see the German car industry potentially being replaced by a German clean tech industry, because the opportunities in clean tech are so huge, and the traditional strengths of the last 50 years of German industry, business, university, et cetera, could be turned towards all the different areas. Energy storage, particular, excites me, but there's a million issues. And even if people are not buying German cars, they might want to buy German clean tech solutions, because as you get into a health and safety issue, I have a bit of distrust for the quality control and safety testing of Chinese products. I would have less. I may be wrong. Maybe it's racism. I don't know.
Yep. No, wait. I can share a story here. Okay.
Please.
So I'm also into this health stuff because I was very ill 3 years ago because of an accident and what follows. So I went in. And I know a Chinese company with Chinese owners, and what I developed was a anti-aging cream based on the knowledge that I have from the supplements that I take and that I studied. So I went into studying what can supplements do to the human body, and with the supplements and essential oils, you can achieve a lot of things that you don't even think is possible. And but the way is only people don't dose it correctly. They underdose it and they never measure and whatever. So, but what I did is I used this knowledge to create a cream that removes age spots on your hands. And it works because I'm 61 years old and I got my first age spots maybe 4 years ago or 5. So I developed this cream and I applied it, and the age spots went away. On one hand, completely, and on the other hand, 90% is gone. And I even cured 2 scars in my face. And
Tempted to put it on my nose.
I don't know whether this helps. Maybe cutting away your nose is a better remedy.
I need to leave early today, Martin. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, it would help your nose because the pores get smaller. I know that if you have big pores on the nose, then the pores will definitely reduce in diameter. And I have seen that on my own nose, so it works. So and then I thought, okay, now I must scale this and maybe create a product from it. So I went to one of our clients who is a cosmetics manufacturer. Now, a cosmetics multi-level marketing company, that's the right thing. And they get all the cosmetics manufactured in China. So I bought 7 liters of this thing, distributed over 14 tubes. It was quite expensive. It was $700 US for 14 tubes, and it's good for maybe a month or so. So it's an expensive treatment, and they're Singaporean Chinese, right? So I gave her, because a good client, I said, hey, don't you want to try this out? Because she's in her 50s also, and you can see it. I said, don't you want to try this out? And then she took it, being polite, right? But and after 2 weeks, I asked, did you try it out? And then she said, oh, when I read the label, I saw that it's from China. And then I didn't want to use it anymore because I was so scared about the heavy metals in it. And then I said, but because she's running a company, and they can do heavy metal tests in their company because they work with certain types of plastics. And then I asked her COO, can you please do a heavy metal test on these substances? And he said, yes, of course I can. And the outcome was that there are so little amounts of heavy metals in it that it's way below the international thresholds from the health institutes. And even knowing that, she says, I don't trust the Chinese. I don't use this cream because you got your ingredients from China. Well, I'm happily using it and I'm not scared because I know that China is a reasonable country, and not all people there are bad or crooks or so. I would say that the majority is honest and they are responsible, especially when they know that people look. So in essence, oh, did I really chase David out or what?
No, he said he had to go.
Yeah, because I made a joke about his nose, right?
I don't think that was the reason. I think he already had a pre-planned meeting or something.
Ah, okay. Yeah, then.
Your joke about his
Hey,
nose
Martin,
was
say
just
Martin,
parallel.
Michael here.
Yes, hi,
So
Michael.
picking up on what David said about the reflecting pond, you know, it's interesting. There are millions of ponds in the United States, but they have aeration fountains. But you know, of course, it wouldn't reflect very well if we had a spout of aerated water coming out, but that would keep the algae away. I read that several weeks ago. Instead of lining it with the guy who cut the lining and making it look like a piece of glass, the other proposal, thinking outside the box for Innovation Thursday here, one guy said it'd be possible to put something floating of a different density, so that only the top 1 inch is water and everything else is hermetically sealed below. And it could be one of Rich's heat transfer fluids from data centers. It could likely be a totally different chemical, and the algae would go away without having to line the pond and spending millions of taxpayer dollars on such a project. It's a laughing stock.
Okay, interesting. I mean, when it comes to such natural solutions, it reminds me, and it's even described in one of my books, the mosquito trap. So I invented a mosquito trap. Actually, no, I didn't invent. The principle was 100 years old and used by the US Army in the war in Asia. They invented traps where the mosquitoes can lay their eggs, and the eggs develop into larvae. And just before the larvae can hatch, you kill them by applying some bleach or whatever, or you heat the water, or you do, I mean, that's the principle. It's called Ovi trap, and I took that principle and I refined it, and I used some pumps and electrical pumps and on a micro thing, and I put the microcontroller there, and the microcontroller activated the pumps so that whenever every 3 days the containers of the traps are emptied, and by emptying the traps, all the larvae are killed. And that was an electric Ovi trap, and I installed 3 of those prototypes at my house, and there was a very bad dengue epidemic or endemic in Singapore. And in Singapore, efficient as we are, we have an online map that shows how many dengue cases where. And I was in the midst of a dengue hotspot. There was even a school, and 50 meters down the road, there were 300 dengue cases in that school. And you could see literally on the trap that I punched a hole into the trap, because my house and the immediate neighbor houses, they were dengue free. So we 6 families, no one of us had dengue, while in all other houses there was dengue. And then I thought, oh, what a nice product that this is. And then I tried to scale it, and I was dreaming already of selling millions of Ovi traps over Singapore and not being a patent attorney anymore. But the problem was that the authorities wanted us to get a license for each trap, because if the trap is left unmaintained, it would be a perfect breeding spot for mosquitoes. And they were fearing that some of the traps remain unmaintained, and then there would be breeding spots. So they said, you need to have a license, and for maintaining that license, you need to bring in once a week a test result, and then for making sure that there's no larvae caught. And that thing killed it, because the costs were not sustainable, because one trap is so expensive that nobody was willing to pay money for it because of that licensing issue. So what I can tell you is, yes, you can use alternative methods to work with problems in nature. But again, FTO, the 4x4 principle applies. If you look carefully at it, FTO kills most innovation. And my guess is that for natural treatments or natural ways to change nature or whatever to solve problems, FTO is still the biggest problem. And I believe it's even a bigger problem than as compared with a technical solution, because a technical solution comes with scientific backup, while those natural solutions often do not.
Say, Martin. So it's interesting in the spirit of innovation. So going back to World War II in the South Pacific, I just Googled. So malaria was the big issue, and soldiers taking quinine was the standard preventative measure. And of course, and I'm sure all over the world, these trucks go through residential areas and basically fog the neighborhood to kill mosquitoes. And of course, the other retail product is often insect repellent. So there must be thousands of patents on mosquito traps that you probably saw in your search. But the problem, including the people who died building the Panama Canal, I mean, the problem for malaria is a very important issue, especially as it was in the South Pacific when we were fighting the Japanese.
Yeah. What I can tell you from my experience, you cannot kill mosquitoes with gas or with chemicals. It's impossible. You would only drive them away.
Why did they go on with the fogging trucks here in America for 50 years through the neighborhoods? They basically smoke them out and they do kill them.
No, you hope that you kill them. But I'm really a mosquito fighting expert, and I can tell you that with fogging, you will not eradicate mosquito populations. It's impossible. What will happen is you may kill 80% of them, but the other 20% go to the neighboring the neighboring area, and they multiply there, and then they come back after some time. So fogging is good for 2 weeks, and that explains why you did it for 50 years. Because if you need to call a fogging company every 2 weeks, it's good business, and it works for 2 weeks. So that's the reason. And the same happens in Singapore. There's also fogging ongoing. And yeah, it's a good business. And is approved by the authorities because yeah, it works.
So how did your device catch them? Did you put a bottle of syrup out with an open cork and the mosquitoes would come into a trap?
No.
How did it work?
You create some artificial ponds, 10-inch, no, not 10, maybe 8-inch by 8-inch square. And then these ponds are connected with water lines, and then you flood them, and you keep the water in a flooded state for 3 days. And every 3 days you empty those, and then let them dry out until everything is dry out. The drying out would kill all the larvae that have been accumulated there over the 3 days, and the dried larvae die. They cannot survive without water, and and that's it. And you do that for 6 weeks, in an iterative
Martin,
way.
this is for the backyard of your house. This isn't for a neighborhood or a city where people are out, hundreds of thousands of people on the streets and in the parks. Your small device is probably just good for your backyard of your home, right?
No, because the Singapore government has taken the idea and they developed the same thing from plastic and without water pumps. And they are distributed wherever there's a mosquito, a dengue problem, then those devices are put there, and they're very cheap.
How
Not-
big of an area are they covering? Are they covering a public park or playground?
I mean, mosquitoes have a very short travel distance. They, in their entire life, they cover an area of maybe 500 square feet, and they cannot
Oh.
fly. No, that's it. They don't fly further. It's not like bees or wasps or whatever. They fly just around where they are born, and 10 feet in one direction. No, not 10 feet. Maybe 15 yards in one direction, and then another, and crisscross. And they always come back to where they stay, and they lay their eggs where they were born usually. So if you eradicate the mosquito population at one spot, then the chances are very, very, very low that mosquitoes from outside would come to your clean spot. And if you do that diligently, then you can then you clear spots of 500 square feet across a park. That would be very many, but it's possible. So
The story of workers in the Panama Canal is they were everywhere, everywhere. So, I don't know the square miles of the Panama Canal, but it was thousands of square miles of workers, and many of them died of malaria building the plant. So I'm sure there was abatement and best efforts, but you might want to Google it. And it was considered Pacific enemy number 2 of the soldiers in World War II in the South Pacific. You know,
Okay, but what I can tell you is that it's the same as cancer. Today, I read a report about cancer therapy, and cancer therapy today is mostly based on assumptions that are not verified. For example, cancer cells cannot go back to become normal cells. And some doctors say, yes, that can be done. And they treat patients based on the contrary. And they do that, and they do also other stuff. So there are two different ways to look at cancer. The one way is that you catch cancer because of some random, because you poison your body, and then there would be a photon from outer space that hits your cell in the DNA, and it changes the DNA, and then suddenly, and then this one cell with the wrong DNA would multiply and multiply and multiply until your entire body is taken over, and then you have to die. So that's a general theory of cancer that I had to learn when I was in high school. So this is how cancer works. But there are people who do not accept these assumptions, and they try other hypotheses, and they are successful. The problem is only that what we call school medicine or scholar science would start from one of those generally acknowledged hypotheses or assumptions or whatever you call it. I'm not a doctor, so I'm a bit cautious here. But I can see the mechanism, and not only in the cancer therapy, but in everything. As soon as it's publicly acknowledged that something works in a certain way, then this becomes the general basis for everything. And then everything has to submit to that one thing. And others who are innovative, who start from questioning those assumptions, they are not allowed to succeed, because that would put the whole system in danger. But
well,
you're much
Martin,
older than me, Michael. You have certainly seen
well,
the same, right?
Yes. Recently, by the way, you might want to Google it. There's some kind of new approach to supplement chemotherapy with enzyme therapy, and that was just announced about a week ago. But on your cancer issue, you know, in the pharmaceutical business, I wish Roland were here, but there's repeatability and reproducibility and efficacy requirements to get any cancer therapy through the FDA here in the USA. And that's got to be true worldwide. So repeatability and reproducibility is really the acid test for any new experimental therapies. So before it's tried on patients, it better have at least an opportunity to, number one, do no harm and have some efficacy and repeatability and reproducibility, or Medicare is not going to pay for it. And the same is true, of course, with public health and throughout Europe and Canada and Sweden. So, you know, when it comes to the money for cancer, everyone would spend their entire net worth to live another 6 months, and people do. But those treatments, whether they be pharmaceutical or radiation or chemotherapy, they've all gone through hundreds of years, or well, decades of research, and they've all been proven to have merit and again, not do any harm. So I think that's the test for new therapies. And of course, you know, Wall Street loves to invest in pharmaceutical companies that claim to have benefits for people who have various forms of cancer. It's got to be 10% of the pharmaceutical revenue worldwide. It's huge.
Okay.
So that's kind of what I've learned over my 50 years of studies in the pharmaceutical business and medical devices, and going to CBER and CDER, the Center for Biological Evaluation and Research and Drug Evaluation and Research at the FDA in Fredericksburg, Maryland. So I spent a lot of time with the FDA and all kinds of projects, and that's the gold standard for any new therapy that's gonna have any benefits. So anything that's experimental from China and all that, I think the key is it has to be repeatable and reproducible. And
It's not so
all the
easy.
statistics that go in.
Michael,
It has
I spent a lot of time with one of our clients who's developing cancer drugs. And he explained to me how a drug pharmaceutical would reach the market when it goes from technology readiness level 0, the idea, to technology readiness level 10, the product on the market. And the biggest problem is, as soon as you do not pass one of the gates, because the experimental data doesn't validate that it works, then you have to go way back to the start. So I would say that 99% of all cancer drug attempts would not be successful because at one point in time, in one of the many gates, and there are at least 5 or 6, not successful and not successfully backed up by experiments and experimental.
Especially if there's harmful side effects that could kill the patient, Martin. I respect the process that if it doesn't pass validation and verification, kick it out and spend the money and the time elsewhere, especially if the side effects are brutal, right? You don't want to put patients through more misery than they're already suffering. So there's side effects of chemo and side effects of nuclear bombardment and radiation, as well as surgery. Those are the 3 gold standards that I've come to know over 50 years for friends and family who died of it. So, you know, it's interesting. If the patient agrees, they can in fact go into the fast track FDA clinical trials, and many patients do, and the governments around the world pay for it. And many cases do have some benefit, and the patients live 5 years with pancreatic cancer that usually kills people in 6 months, right? So it can prove to be effective, but the patient has to be fully knowledgeable and agree to take the risk of something that's early clinical trials and not FDA approved.
Would be interesting to finance the first drug or pharmaceutical over Credentilyx. I'm already looking forward to that, I can tell you, because it will give us very, very interesting insights. And I still believe that the Credentilyx is most valuable for pharmaceuticals.
Martin, you can just take your pick. You can find directories and pharma magazines of IPOs for the latest experimental drugs. You might call those people and try and get them on board with Credentilyx and financing.
No,
Before
definitely.
the pre-IPO drug companies, there's thousands of them per year.
What I can tell you is if they're IPO, then the technology readiness level is already 10 or 9 or 7.
No, I'm
or
saying
8.
if they're pre-IPO, they could be out there writing articles about their research and so forth to try and attract early investors. That would be, I think, prime opportunities for your clients in Credentilyx. You should be able to identify those. Yeah, you should be able to identify those pre-IPO stage startups.
Yes. I believe once the thing is up and running, it's easy to find people because we have something that everybody wants, the most liquid asset in the world, which is cash. And it's just about selecting the right products or ideas for that. But we have to start somewhere, right? And so currently we are struggling. And now back to where I started. The current Credentilyx project is still further, so better than last week, yes, but you can still not buy them. And once the first project is on the market and we see that people are willing to put in money, and it doesn't even matter how much money they're willing to put in, but if that mechanism is shown to work, then I believe there would be a lot of companies that are interested in that, because simply it's so useful, right? And you don't give away equity, you just give them hope that they can purchase the product with a discount. That's
How
the
are you
basic.
doing with your cargo venture? How's that going?
Yeah, exactly. I told you that this is the first project where we activate Credentilyx. And just today there was a big discussion back and forth on how we make sure that if the law changes, we have a way to contact all those people who received the original token assessment and they know that the token is overridden by some changes in law. I don't know whether this will happen or not, but I can tell you that this is a requirement by bureaucracy, and we have to comply. So I know this since today, and by next week we will have a solution for that. I can tell you. Yeah. So good. Unless someone of you has something for the meeting today, I would like to terminate early because I still have to prepare something tomorrow. I have a travel day and I will only be back on Monday where I am. So every minute would help.
Say, Martin, real quick, just to take 10 seconds. Have you heard the rumor about Volkswagen selling to the Chinese? I sent you the article on WhatsApp.
Yes, I have a story for that.
Well, maybe for next week then.
No, I can because I find it so. You know, I worked for 15 over years for General Motors and Opel in Rüsselsheim. We were the patent firm who did all the patents for the manual shift gearboxes, not automatic ones. Some automatic, but more the manual ones, because they are the more difficult ones. And I remember about 10 years ago, I was once a year or twice a year, you have to go there and you have to show that you're still alive and talk with the patent attorneys, in-house patent attorneys, and so on, so on, so on. And then I had a new product, which was a competitor survey. And then they said, yeah, Martin, hey, I'm very interested. Can you do a competitor survey for Chinese car manufacturers? And I said, yeah, I can do that. Because 10 years ago, the Chinese patents were not as available as they are today. So it was a bit difficult. But I could do. And so I said, yes. And so, and then I asked him, so do you already have an idea of who are the competitors in China? And then they asked me, Martin, have you heard of a company BYD, Büt? BYD? And I said, oh, cannot be. I mean, 10 years ago, that was already famous in the whole of Asia, right? And then they just heard recently of that one. But these guys are in the car industry. So I was assuming that they would know better what is going on in the car industry. But I found myself having more insight into that being in Singapore. And today we read in a newspaper that BYD may purchase Volkswagen, which makes sense to me because until maybe 5 years ago, Volkswagen had a 40% share of all the new cars produced in China and sold in China. So Volkswagen is a famous brand in China. And if BYD takes over the Volkswagen brand, they would immediately outrun all their competitors in China. I believe that would be the most natural move that they could do. This is not an investment. I would say is a no-brainer because Volkswagen has such a good reputation as a brand, much better than BYD in China. I would say this is the most, I would say, compelling and most natural, logical, and whatever natural approach.
What about all the jobs in Wolfsburg? Would basically all the jobs leave Germany and build all Volkswagens for the world
I mean,
in China?
I'm prophesying this for years. The car industry in Germany I mean, I'm talking on German soil. I'm not talking about a German company or brand or whatever. I talk about jobs, guys who are involved in making cars in Germany. There are about 3.5 to 4 million people. That was 2017. About 1 million directly with all the German car manufacturers. And for each job, there were 3 jobs connected to it, not full-time, but part-time. So for those 4 million will be reduced to 1 million. And that not in 10 years, not in 5 years, but we can see that over the next, I said 2 years ago, within 5 years. So from now on in 3 years, 1 million.
So it's not just Volkswagen, it's all five. And you're
Yes.
saying that the Chinese will invade Audi and Porsche and BMW as well, you think?
And also Ford. Have you ever heard of Ford? Ford is quite strong in Germany, in Cologne. So Ford Germany will have to lay off people. It's the most natural way. Yeah, yes. And even the current car manufacturers in Germany, they take on white label manufacturing for the Chinese car brands. So there are BYD cars manufactured in Germany already. And you would be surprised, they would be sold in Mercedes-Benz dealerships. You find a Mercedes next to a BYD in a Mercedes dealership. And that's not something that I dreamed. That was true 2 years ago already. It's that serious. I believe it's
I
one
think in the US, Martin, there's BYD dealerships just in the state of Texas. I don't know, Rich may know. I don't know if BYD is invading other states yet, but I think they're in certain cities in Texas now. What do you think, Rich?
Yeah, I just have experience with BYD in California, outside Los Angeles. They were building transit buses, and one of the projects that I looked at there, they were doing some advanced recharging of the buses during its use in routes, right? And they had a brand new charging technology and concept where the bus would pull over a pad and be charged, on that pad. And we had some, at my company, we had some technology that they were interested in to assist with that, and would ensure quicker charging. So that's when I learned about BYD as a company, and their influence in not only the transit bus arena, but also, in their automotive aspects. And to my knowledge, they still haven't really done that much in the U.S. I think you just said they have an office in, what did you say, Texas?
Yes, several dealers down there. So in California, Rich, it's buses only. You can't walk into a dealer in Los Angeles and buy a BYD, can you?
Yeah, not that I'm aware of, no.
Yeah, me neither.
I think the National Car Dealers Association, NADA, has put up some firewalls to prevent the Chinese from
Yeah.
coming into
Yeah,
the U.S.
and with good reasons, because the Chinese cars collect data like hell. I can tell. I know from firsthand. And
Yeah, it's interesting. I've mentioned here before, when Christoph was here a couple times, I asked him if he was familiar with a company called Hesay in China. And the co-founder of that company, and they're a LiDAR manufacturer in China.
yeah, he's a friend of yours, right?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't. He's more of an acquaintance. I worked with him on a project at University of Illinois when he was pursuing his PhD. But in any event, David is his name, and he's the co-founder. And they were just blacklisted by the U.S. government for ties to the CCP military infrastructure in China.
Yes, because everybody is part of the whole system. It's very normal.
And it all goes back to, this whole idea of data capture. And the aspect of what LiDAR does in its principal technology, right?
Yes.
And there's a financial program called CNBC here in the States. And on CNBC, they have Melissa Lee, one of the reporters there, just did a program called Blacklisted. And EC is one of the companies in that. So their stock, which was, at over $30, I think, like 3 months ago, is now like $9-10.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this what we face is no longer predictable at all. Anyway, people, we are 3 minutes over time. We have all a day ahead of us. And I thank you so much for today. See you again next week. And don't forget, in 2 weeks' time, we have the ICI with Riding the Wave. And then we talk about the German companies and how to give them a second foothold in Asia. I believe it will be quite interesting. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Martin.
Bye.
So long, Martin.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mark. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.